Welcome to Thinking is Contagious. I just heard the news conference with the CEO of Merck and the Johnson and Johnson, uh, and they're applauding and giving accolades to the Biden administration for the vaccines and the rollout of the vaccines. You know, these people, and especially the Merck CEO, he just went out of his way to praise Biden. And I can tell you that he's a phony because the reason, and no liberal, and no progressive, and no Democrat can stand in front of us, any of us, and deny the fact. We have vaccines, multiple vaccines, in record amount of time that have saved, will save and have saved lives, and will save millions of lives, thanks to Donald J. Trump and Operation Warp Speed. Period. The Democrats and the liberals had nothing to do with it. If it had been in their realm, in their control, we would still be going through FDA approvals. This was done by an entrepreneur. This was done by a man who said, I'm going to resolve a problem, and put his business acumen into play. This could never have been done by a politician, by a swamp dweller, which is who's leading us today. I don't know if you saw a couple of days ago the news conference, the press conference, quote unquote, the news conference that he had. He knew nothing. He couldn't remember names of anyone. He didn't even know where his offices were. He looked totally tired and confused. At the end of his stumbling and bumbling, they asked him if the border was a problem. He just looked like a deer in the headlights, bewildered, as his handlers told him, we're done, and they ushered him off the stage. The border is a disaster. A disaster. People are pouring in, attempting to pour in, all at a time when we're fighting a pandemic. No control over who comes in, who's infected, who's not infected. They don't let you see the holding cells where they're keeping these people because guess what? It's exactly the same thing that they criticized Trump for, the cages that Obama built. Joe Biden doesn't know where he is. He has a problem. He has a serious mental health issue. The liberals and the Democrats are playing this out, stringing it out, timing-wise, to afford themselves the ability to get as much as they can out with the support of some of the more moderate Democrats who don't want to vote against their friend Joe Biden. As soon as the deed is done, as soon as the socialist views are cemented and fomented and made part of the infrastructure of this country, Biden will be declared incompetent by his own party. All of a sudden, the epiphany will be had that he's not mentally competent. We've discussed this many times. He's president of the United States because A, they have much on him, and they told him, you want to be president, you're 78 years old, you're at the end of the rope, you're at the end of the road as far as your career is concerned. You're never going to accomplish, even Obama told him not to run, okay? You're never going to be anything, you're never going to accomplish anything. We'll make a deal with you. We will make you the president. And I know YouTube and everyone's going to ban it for what I'm going to say. We will make you the president. We will make sure that the election comes out that way. But you in return will do our bidding. Because if not, We will expose you and your family. And we will make sure that your legacy is tarnished and one that's negative. Those are my opinions. I am voicing them as I feel. I am telling people who agree with it that we know this and that we react to this in a positive, safe, decent, civilized way by fighting against this corruption in a civil manner, in a manner where we have our voices heard peacefully through intellect and conversation, through lobbying, through efforts, through contacting our legislature, and letting them know exactly how we feel about what's being done to us. What's being done to us as far as the loss of control on the border. What's being done to us as far as the H.R. 1 act that the Democrats are hell-bent on passing, where basically anyone who can walk and chew gum can vote. Third parties can harvest votes, pick up votes. Election day becomes election month. And who knows what it becomes after that, election quarter, election year. If I wanted to get into Joe Biden's gated community, I need to show ID, don't I? If I wanted to get into Nancy Pelosi's high-rise condo building, I need to show ID, don't I? Or have some kind of ID to get in. You don't need ID to vote in this country, according to the Democrats, according to the liberals, according to the far left. Why? Because they're trying to make a large portion of their voting bloc become those people that don't have ID, that weren't entitled to vote. If you're not an American citizen, you're not entitled to vote. Period. If you can't show ID that verifies that you are an American citizen, you shouldn't be allowed to vote. The rules currently state in many states, if you're a felon, you can't vote. Until those rules are changed, a felon can't vote. Mail-in ballots, sending out, not stopping voter rolls from being purged of deceased people. That can't be allowed. For some things, the liberals want a lot of verification. Gavin Newsom. 2 million people have signed a recall petition. The Attorney General for the state, sanctioned, of course, under the direction of Newsom, wants to verify each and every signature. Didn't seem that important in the election to verify each and every signature. Presidential election. I wonder why. When we look at the agenda of this administration, it is as far left and as progressive as you can possibly get. The $1.9 trillion stimulus bill is totally unwarranted. Totally unwarranted. There's still hundreds of billions of dollars unused from the previous stimulus. No more than 20% of this new 1.9 trillion is directly attributable to COVID. But nonetheless, the special interests and the payback for the vote buying need be funded by the United States citizens. And that's what this is. That's what these Democrats are doing. That's what these liberals are doing. And they're shoving it down everyone's throat. So much talk about bipartisan and being everyone's president. None of that has manifested itself. Are we not seeing this? Are we not understanding what's happening to us? I listen to these financial networks, and today there was an interview at lunchtime, and they had some I want to say an investor, CEO, I think it was a CEO, or an investor in a company, a private company, it might have been. And they challenged them. They said, hey, you're very vocal about minorities in the boardroom, yet this company that you're taking public now, today, uh, doesn't have a person of color on the board. How is this acceptable? This question. Could I say, why does this company not have a white person on the board? Why is this acceptable? The board of directors of any company, if the criteria is what color are they, or what gender are they, or what race are they, or what's their sexual orientation, that's not what I want running my company that I'm an investor in, that I'm a shareholder in. I want the board of directors to be the most qualified. Now, that doesn't mean that the most qualified is not a minority, is not someone. That doesn't mean that. That's not what I'm saying. But when you are advertising that that's your lead hurdle, you're telling me that qualification is not the lead factor. And that I have a problem with. And that we should all have a problem with. And you know who supports that more than anyone? The enemies of this country. Because as soon as you begin to weaken and you make the criteria not the best and the brightest, but the best and the brightest within a specific demographic, China rejoices. Russia rejoices. Iran rejoices. Do you not see this? Do you not see this? And by the way, by forcing a minority on a board because the qualifications are close, but we need a minority, you're lowering the criteria and you're hurting the minority because everyone needs to achieve and arrive and be the best in order to be recognized as the best. You can't be the best within a demographic. Because guess what? The demographic that counts is America, Americans, all Americans. Once we start breaking it up and saying this is the most qualified Cuban, this is the most qualified white man, this is the most qualified Oriental, this is the most whatever it is, as soon as we start saying that, we eliminate simply the most qualified as the best criteria, as the top criteria. And that's where this is going. You can't say anything. You can't say anything against minorities. You can't say anything against women. You can't in this country. The low person on the totem pole in this country is a white man. A white man now goes out and says, I want to run for office. The first thing that he has to do is be ready to prove, in a country where you are innocent until proven guilty, but be ready to prove that he's not a racist. That's the first thing he has to do. What have we become? They're taking Dr. Seuss off eBay. They are taking names off of schools. George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. Everything is offensive. This woke society is a joke. And people are afraid. They are absolutely petrified to say, no, I don't accept this, because they know that they can have their lives ruined, their businesses destroyed, their reputations destroyed, because the woke society is trying to take over this country. I won't accept it, and I won't put up with it. I can tell you that. I will say what's on my mind, respectfully, and as informed and educated as I will be before I make a statement. Does it mean that all my statements? No, they're not all correct. but they are my interpretation based on my knowledge at this point and my opinion. My opinion, and I am allowed to voice my opinion, is that there's no way that 81 million people believe that this is correct. There is no way. And the third party is a requirement because the swamp is a stench and an abomination. And the swamp is worse now than ever because they had a small taste of the swamp being dried up by Donald Trump. They saw what could happen. They saw how bad it could get. And they said, we need to make sure that this never happens again. And the result is what you're seeing today. Kamala Harris, the praying mantis, is getting ready. Biden will be declared incompetent by his own party. She will become the president of the United States. And if you think we have problems now, if you think this is a problem right now, wait until she is in charge. 2022, critical that we get out and vote and stop this. Because without it, without putting constraints on this far left agenda, all we're going to do is pay the freight for the majority of Americans who are going to be perfectly content not working, not going anywhere, not paying taxes, because there's going to be the quote-unquote recurring subsidies, the universal income, whatever they want to call it, the Andrew Yang money, whatever you want to call it. That is the objective. And this test of printing trillions and trillions of dollars to throw into the economy is the proof, quote unquote, proof that the left is going to use to say we can afford to do this because look, we did it with stimulus and it didn't bankrupt us. The reason it didn't bankrupt us, it hasn't bankrupted us yet, is because the country can't go bankrupt. But we're bankrupt. There's no way to pay back this debt ever. The only way to eliminate the red tape, the red on this in this country, the deficit in this country, is to declare bankruptcy. There's no way to pay this back. And then they say, oh, no, the taxes on the rich. That's not even, that won't make a dent in it. It's going to be the taxes on everyone. It's going to be one for you and one for me. That's how this is going to be divvied up in the future for those that work. But the incentive right now is to buy enough votes by telling people you don't have to work. And then eventually, when all that is in place, and there's a majority of people are sitting at home waiting for their government check, guess what's going to happen? Because it's happened already in Venezuela, it's happened in Cuba, it's happened in a lot of places that they promised them a subsidy to allow them to live. You know what's going to happen? We don't have enough money to give you your $2,000 as an example. So next year we're going down to $1,800. We don't have enough money any longer to give you your $1,800, so we're doing it $1,500. And thereon it will continue. But I'll tell you who's never going to take a cut. You know who's never going to take a cut? That politician that you voted for. They're never going to take a cut. And little by little, that subsidy, that Andrew Yang money, that subsidy that you think is so great, it's going to go away. Because there's no way to pay for these things without Americans working. Look at Spain, look at Greece. Okay, look at France, look at Europe, what happened when they decided that people could retire at 50 with 100% pensions. Look what happened. Look at Cuba, what happened. They started out sending people money and buying and giving them food and giving them food stamps and ability to go get, and everyone, And little by little, as things got darker for the country, it became that you had nothing. You received nothing. You receive a few shekels, a few dollars every month, and make do with them. And that's what's going to happen here. This needs to stop. And the ignorance of those who believe, and I'm sorry if somebody's offended by this, but if you believe socialism is the answer, you're ignorant. You are completely ignorant of what socialism is. And there's not enough of us who pay taxes to support those that don't pay taxes. I'm pretty tired of this. I'm pretty sick of this. And I'm pretty sick of the political correctness that's required to avoid being ostracized and demonized and criticized and attacked on social media and attacked because you don't agree with something. Black Lives Matter is garbage. All lives matter. When you start dividing things up by race, it's garbage. Antifa is a terrorist organization. White supremacists are trash. Any organization that is guided and limited by race, gender, religion, or creed is discriminatory. Any institution, organization, political party that identifies itself based on a minority, a race, a gender, is prejudice. We are Americans. All Americans. I'm not a Cuban American, I'm an American. African Americans are not African Americans, they're Americans. There should never be the caveat, the first Cuban American to hold this post, the first African American to hold this post, the first woman to hold. Nope. As soon as you start doing that, you are degrading the accomplishment. And you are saying to all who are listening, if this was just the best as the criteria, maybe we would have a different person here. Think about that, because that's where this country's going to. It's very easy to pull people down to a level. It's much harder to demand that people elevate themselves to the top. Because then it becomes effort, persistence, suffering, dedication, and perseverance. And it's not all a bed of roses. And it's not all what you're entitled to. We're not entitled to anything. We're born and we die. What happens in between, we're not entitled to any of it. It's out there. We choose the direction we take our lives in. And as I've said many times, you look at any group in this country that has come and migrated into this country, and you look at how they've assimilated and where they've come from and where they are today, this country has made them spiritually, financially, freedom-wise, has elevated them to a level that they would have never achieved outside of this country. And there's a reason for that. Because this is a country that is not systemically racist. This is a country where opportunity is there for everyone, regardless of race, color, or creed. The only people who do not believe that this country is that, are people who have been indoctrinated, that the opportunity is not there for them because of some mitigating made-up mitigating factor. And those people who have perpetrated that lie are the very people who live off of that belief. The people who push that this is a systemically racist country are the people who live off of racism. Without racism, they wouldn't have a job. The people in this country who push that there's gender inequality in this country are the people who live from gender inequality being an issue. These are all manufactured. These are all created. And these are all mindsets that are ingrained in kids from a very early age by those who are trying to control them to make sure that they have their vote and a job. And they're buying that vote with your money and my money and the taxpayer money. This is perfectly, simply clear. A broken and corrupt political system. And until we get a third party, there's going to be no difference done here. So I hope you listen to this, take this to heart, and realize that what I seek is the good of America. What Washington, D.C. seeks is the good of Washington, D.C. Peace, and have a good day.